Good day, everybody. We are going to finish up Civil Liberties 4 through 10 today. It's going to be a two-parter because the last part is pretty long. There are 14 total slides between the two parts, and I want to make sure we get everything in. First one, this one will be a little shorter, just like part A was the other day as well. So let's get started. We're going to finish the amendments today. Sorry about that. Okay, so we're going to finish the amendments today and then do the right to privacy and our case, and then you'll have Roe v. Wade as the case again for your assignment. So let's start. We ended with the Sixth Amendment, so we're going to do Seventh. Like I said, these will be really quick. Seventh Amendment, there it is, of course, in its entirety. It's about suits, so it's about civil cases and trial by jury. So it guarantees at the federal level only a trial by jury for civil cases. It has not been incorporated. So what that means is that states can choose, if they wish, they can choose to do civil cases with a judge only, if they want to. Or, as in many cases, they'll let the defendant choose in a civil case. Do you want to do it in a jury, or do you want to do it in front of a judge? So just as we know, just so we know that this part is not incorporated. Okay, so let's go on to the eighth. This one will take a couple of slides to do. The Eighth Amendment. There it is, of course. Excessive bail shall not be required, nor excessive fines, nor cruel and unusual punishments be inflicted. And of course, this is an idea of definition, and of course, things have changed over time, right? So it was incorporated in 1962. We don't need to know the case or anything like that. But the question is what issue does this really center on? And the answer is that it centers on, in our society today, it centers on the death penalty. Okay, so cruel and unusual punishment. Is the death penalty cruel and unusual punishment? A whole lot of people in our society say yes. A whole lot of people in our society say no. So we're going to talk about how that has evolved over time and to get to the present place we are today. And it actually starts with two cases in Georgia. Case of Furman versus Georgia in 1972. The Supreme Court overturned, you can see there, Georgia's death penalty law because it was, in the words of the opinion of the justice, freakish and random and seemed arbitrary in nature, possibly racially unbalanced. So that's what happened. They overturned that law, and at the same time, what actually happened effectively outlawed the death penalty, became unconstitutional in the United States starting in 1972 for a short time. And another Georgia case is what changes that again, and it is 4 years later, a case called Gregg versus Georgia in 1976, and what that did was reinstate capital punishment as something that is constitutional. States can do it if they wish. The national government can do it if they wish. Okay, so we're going to talk about how this gets refined here. There's a case called McCluskey versus Kemp in 1987. It was the last major challenge to the death penalty as far as being constitutional or not in its entirety. And the court decided that capital punishment did not violate what is the Equal Protection Clause. And so that was the argument then, and the plaintiffs lost that argument in the Supreme Court. So the death penalty is still constitutional. However, it has been refined. For instance, in the United States now, all forms, with the exception of lethal injection, have been declared unconstitutional. Georgia used to have, before this took effect, Georgia used to have the electric chair down there in Jackson, the state prison in Jackson. That was where death row was in Georgia, or is in Georgia. And the executions were done by electric chair. That is no longer constitutional. So only lethal injection, unless, if you see on the writing there in parentheses, unless by choice of the convicted person. Some states allow the condemned person, the person who has been accused and found guilty and sentenced to death, they could choose their own way from several choices. They could choose lethal injection if they wish. They can choose, in some states, and this is the example of where that is, and I think this is in Utah, and I know Utah is a case, they can choose a firing squad if they wish. It's up to the defendant. It's up to the condemned person. And this has been used. For sure, it has been used in Utah. The person decided they would rather have the firing squad than lethal injection. So some states, not a lot of them, but some states do allow this choice system, and that is constitutional. Also, the death penalty can apply to 16 and 17-year-olds. That is where we are right now. What were called victim impact statements are allowed, which is so essentially it's a in death penalty cases in the United States, you are convicted of the capital crime, and then you have another phase of the trial where the very same jury then decides the punishment, because only this will be the next thing. Only in the United States now, the death penalty can only be applied if a jury chooses it, not just the judge. And in the vast majority of other cases, in fact, all of them, as far as I know, the defendant is found guilty, and then the judge imposes sentence. For death penalty cases, if it's going to be death, the jury has to do it. Okay. And the language, of course, is not what we use in 2021. But the parentheses thing is from the decision itself, so that is what it is. In 2002, the Supreme Court decided you cannot execute, in the words of 2002, mentally retarded persons. So we use the term special ed or people are behind, or whatever the term is these days. But that's the term they used in 2002. So it is there. So please don't be offended by that. It is the terms out of the decision. Okay, let's move on to the Ninth Amendment. This is where we transition out of the Bill of Rights. Well, actually, Ninth Amendment. Let me leave that. We'll say it's the 10th Amendment. So there it is. The enumeration in the Constitution of certain rights should not be construed to deny or disparage others retained by the people. The idea is, what does this mean? And what it means is, and we sit in class and have a couple people answer what do they think this means. But what it means is, just because a right is not listed does not mean we don't have it. Okay, they got around. They wanted to make sure that this wasn't the definitive list, that other things are there as well, because they didn't want to go, oh crap, we forgot something, and then the government can go ahead and inhibit that right. So this is in there to say, nope, just because we didn't write it down doesn't mean we don't have it. Okay, and then the 10th, we actually talked about the 10th in federalism in the portion of Unit 1. If you remember, hopefully, there it is. The powers not delegated to the United States by the Constitution, nor prohibited by it to the states, are reserved to the states respectively or to the people. So what does that mean then, right? It means if it's not specifically in the Constitution for the national government to have it, it belongs to the states or the people. Okay? This is what's called the States' Rights Amendment. That's usually what we call it nowadays. And it basically means, if you take this to the very strictest interpretation, which some people do, some people don't, that it says, you know what, only those things listed in Article 1, Section 8, that's it. That's all the national government can do. That changed a little bit, of course, with the very first case we ever did in this class from our list of 15 is the McCullough versus Maryland case. And remember, that one is where the idea of implied powers came from. So the strictest of strict interpretations of Amendment 10 is not really applicable anymore, because that is the doctrine of implied powers. Okay, it of course can be controversial. What has happened is, basically after the Civil War until about the 1980s, most states just had given up on this amendment. Like, yeah, whatever, national government, go and do whatever you want, encroach on our rights, we don't really care, that kind of thing. But starting in the 1980s and then onward, there's been a lot of renewed interest from the states. And so this is past 30 years. I could probably extend that to 40 years now, where states' rights has become, and the 10th Amendment has become more and more something used. The idea about federalism has become much more prominent than it was, say, before 1980, from the Civil War to 1980. Okay, that's it. That's it for this slide. Okay, for this portion of the segment, we will do the other segment here. I'll get that up to you momentarily. So see you on.